Okay, so welcome to part two. Um, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our blaster and get that prepared. Then we'll get our explosion. We'll get that prepared. And then we'll combine the two. So when you put it in Scratch, it looks like the blaster is actually getting blown up. So there's some steps for that. So we're going to go web small again. We're going to create. This is a brand new blank screen here. So let's go ahead and let's get the blaster in there. So we're going to go to, but instead of going to file, we're actually going to import these as layers. Okay. So one thing I want you guys to know about layers is layers are like different images that can be stacked on top of each other. And when you look at it, it looks like one image, but we can actually work with the different components together. So think of it like an encyclopedia, an old encyclopedia. You go to the human body, you have the skeletal system. It's on a plastic sheet. You see all the bones of the human body. Then you have the muscular system, and you lay that on top of the bones. You look at the two, you see the bones, see the muscles together. Then you have the organs, and you bring the organs over, and that lays on top. Actually, probably the organs should be first before the muscular system. But anyway, all of these are, when you look at them together, it's blended as the human body, but you can peel them away as different layers. So that's how I want you to think about what we're doing right now, and how you can work with the different layers, and you can work with them individually, manipulate them, but then when you look at it, it's all one image. Anyway, that's my explanation of layers. You want a different explanation of layers? I'm sure there's a good explanation on YouTube someplace, or the World Wide Web, as to what layers are. So we're going to import. We're going to go to Layer, Add Image as Layer. So we're going to put one of our images in as a layer. So let's go ahead and put our explosion in there. Okay. It's very big here on the outside, but the image is really small. That's going to be a little funky to work with, but we'll make it work. Okay. So note that it is now a layer. It's called pExplosion1. Okay. So now let's go ahead and add another layer. This one's going to be our blaster. My blaster is actually located in Explosions, Blaster Original. So let's double click that. Okay. So I'm going to resize this so that it's closer to the size of the explosion. Kind of put these side by side. Okay, so they're more consistent. Okay, now we can zoom in, and now we can see both of them, and they're relatively the same size. Okay, so we need to get these prepared so that when we put them in Scratch, you're not going to see that white background on the blaster or that black background around the explosions. We're going to get them to look kind of transparent, so to speak. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use, so first off, let's make sure, I'm going to start with the blaster. So I'm going to select the blaster, and then I'm going to choose the magic wand, okay, and I'm going to click. So one thing I want you to pay attention to is this tolerance. You're going to have to pay attention to that. It kind of is the strength on how well it's going to select something. So actually, let me Control Z to undo that last step. I'm going to click more on the black area. Okay. That may actually be a good selection. I'm going to move it and see what that looks like. Edit, undo. Okay. You know what? It's selecting the black, but it's also selecting that bluish purplish color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control. Is it Control or Shift? Let's see. Shift. Hold down Shift. I'm going to click to, I'll make sure I'm on the wand because I selected off of that. So hold down Shift, click on the blue area, okay, to kind of turn it off. Turn it off, turn it off. Okay, so now you can see it's going all the way around the outside. That's what I want because I want the whole image selected. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Select, Invert Selection. Select, Invert Selection. Okay, and I'm going to hit the Delete key. And notice what it's done. It's now deleted the background, and now we only have the blaster selected. I'm going to go to Select, Deselect. That's good. That layer is bueno. Now I'm going to go to the explosion, and I'm going to work with that. Magic wand it again. Tolerance at about 100 seems to work pretty well. Zoom in on it if you want, and I'm just going to click on it. Looks good to me. It looks like it's going all the way around, but what you can do is you can hold Shift, and if you very carefully, watch this, if I very carefully, I can click on this one, get those crop, didn't work. Control Z to undo it. Okay, I'm just going to go with that. But what you can do sometimes is you can go and you can select different areas. But that looks pretty good. Invert selection, select invert selection, hit delete. Okay, so now I've gotten rid of everything. Go to select, deselect. So now I have these two layers. And what I can do with this layer is I can move it. Okay, notice it's not on top of the blaster. I want the explosion to be on top. So if you come over here in Pixlr and you move it up, that should now be on top because now this is showing that that's a prominent layer. It's going to go on top of whatever's underneath. Okay, so now let's kind of slide this thing over, and we're going to see if that's like a good, for our first explosion, if that looks pretty good. I can make this one, as long as I'm on the explosion layer, I can make it a little bit bigger if I want. Okay, so looks pretty good as our first explosion. File, I'm going to save this thing as our first, oh, you know what? Before you do that, these are all kind of individual layers. Before I save it, I want it to be just one image, a blaster with an explosion on it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. Now, if you notice, what that just did is it took all the layers and everything and it just mashed it into one. Now we have no layers. It's called the background. That's our actual image. Okay, so now I can save that. Save it. I should give it a name so I really know what it is. So since it's kind of one image now, I'm just going to call it Explosion 1. It's the first explosion sequence that I'm going to put into Scratch. Okay. And I'll just click download. Unfortunately, this does not allow me to choose specifically where I want to download it. It's going to be in my downloads folder. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So that's what it's going to look like for your first explosion. You will actually repeat all of these steps. You're going to get the blaster in there. You're going to get your second explosion, which is going to be a bigger explosion. Put that all in there, right? Manipulate it, get it all good. Repeat the same steps I just showed you. And then you will save this as Explosion 2. You'll do that for Explosion 3, Explosion 4, and you may even have an Explosion 5. I'm not sure how many. When you put all of those explosion sequences in Scratch, it will actually play all those and you'll see your blaster explode and it'll look more realistic, kind of like it's going to play a little simple animation, and it'll look pretty cool and real. Okay, so hopefully that is going to help you get your explosion sequences all prepared. See you in the next video.